The Rojo Light Therapy 300. This is the tabletop panel from a new red light therapy company based in Australia. Quite a unique design with a control panel I've never seen before. In this video, I'm going to take a good hard look at it, review it, share my thoughts, and see how it compares to some other tabletop red light therapy panels. Hey guys, it's Alex here from alexfergus.com, and today I have a brand new red light therapy device from a brand new company. Now the company is called Rojo, R-O-J-O. It's Spanish for red, but the company is actually based in Australia, or Australia and New Zealand. They're catering more towards that market. However, I am told they will be shipping internationally. But in terms of support and distribution and all that, it's all out of Australia, which is pretty cool because I often get questions from Australians and Kiwis asking, what are the local companies I don't want to, maybe they don't want to purchase from an American company if something goes wrong and all of those things. So this panel, we're going to be looking at it today. I'm going to be doing my full review, quantifying the power, looking at its specs, seeing how it compares to other panels, playing around with the control panel operation, seeing what's in the box, all that cool stuff. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the company, so we may do that first. So sit back, enjoy. If you have one of these or you're thinking of getting one of these, I'll put a link to it below. Discount code Alex should save you 5%. And yeah, if you do already have one, I'm keen to hear your thoughts and your experience with this brand new red light therapy company based in Australia. Okay, so let's unbox the Rojo 300 and we'll see what's inside. I'm keen to see how it looks as well. I've heard it's a unique design, so that's pretty cool. All right, first up, we've got the instruction manual. Nice gloss printed manual here. It's got all your setup, what the buttons do, how to link them, what's included in the box, frequently asked questions, returns, policies, yeah, all that good stuff. So good to see they got a decent manual there. We've got power cables, a New Zealand, Australian cable, which I wouldn't expect anything less. We've got the door hanging hook here. Now this one is one of the bigger ones. I have seen this before with the adjustable clamp there. I like this because typically they're quite small and they don't fit on my doors. This one does, you do have to take out the clamp, but that is good to see. We've got the pulley cable set up here, which is the heavy duty one. Also, another good thing that I like to see. We've got your goggles, standard sort of eye protection. We've got some metal cables there. They screw into the top of the panel if you want to hang it. An Allen key and some screws. I'm not too sure what that's for. The remote, quite an interesting remote. We'll have a good look at this soon. And the panel itself. So it's got the stand on it, the adjustable stand. Quite a unique size. So it's 6 LEDs across, 10 down. That stand is very stiff, as I'm used to now. Gosh, I criticized the first stand that was like this, but I now realize you kind of need that stiffness to hold the panel in place. So the panel is made of metal. What have we got? One big fan at the back there, power cable at the top with a switch. Plastic stand. The color is a little bit different to the panel itself. So we've seen, like with the Platinum LED Biomax, for instance, their metal stand is exactly the same material as the panel. So, just little things like that do make a product a little bit more premium. Not that this is bad, just an observation. So that's everything in the box. Let's talk about the company. Rojo Light Therapy. Now they're actually a subsidiary company of the Australian and New Zealand branch of Sunstream saunas. Now I own and use Sunstream saunas. I actually have 2 of them in my house. My sister has one, 3 of my mates have one. Really good saunas at an exceptional price. I've done lots of reviews on them and I've got to know the owners and the guys behind the company quite well over the years as well. Now, they actually told me, hey, look, we're going to be setting up a red light therapy company. We'd love to, have you test one. And I said, hey, sure, that's kind of what I do. So send it out. And here we have their first panel. Now, they're going to be selling 4 different sizes. the Rojo 300, which is what I have here, in 60 LEDs. They're also going to do a 900, which has got 180 LEDs. I believe it was then a 1500 and maybe a 3000. So hopefully in time I'll be able to test those larger ones. If you'd like me to test those larger ones, leave a comment below. But as I've been focusing on tabletop panels lately, I thought the 300 is a great starting point. Now, the company ships all their products from a depot in Melbourne, Victoria in Australia, which is great. So they said if you're in Sydney, for instance, and you order one of their panels, you should have it in a couple of days. Saying that freight's all over the place these days, it may take longer. But the best thing of all is, of course, there's no import tax duty issues if you're living in Australia, and they said the same is true for New Zealand customers as well. So the price you pay at the checkout screen is the price you pay. There's no shipping cost for Australians and New Zealanders, and the price is all inclusive of border taxes and local taxes. Not only that, there's a phone number. Their support team is based in New Zealand, I believe. There's a local Australian number and a local New Zealand number. So any issues, you can contact them. All good stuff. You know, we've seen this before with companies like Platinum and some American companies and European companies. It's pretty standard, but we haven't really seen it in the New Zealand and Australian market. So this is why it's neat. However, if you're watching this and you live in Australia or Canada or the UK and you're just about to sign off because you think, oh, well, this isn't applicable to me, don't worry. They've said that yes, international shipping is in the pipeline. At the moment, if you're watching this and you head over to Rojo Light Therapy and you don't see an option for international shipping, they said just to flick them an email and they'll sort something out for you on a case-by-case basis. But that is the it is coming. In fact, they said they want to set up some inventory in the UK, which is quite neat. Now, because this company is a subsidiary of Sunstream Storeners, I know straight away that they're legit. They're not just some cowboys setting something up in their garage, building a website overnight and, you know, flogging off red light therapy panels. I always get asked about those sort of companies, and sometimes they even reach out to me saying, hey, review my panel. I typically shy away from new companies like that, especially if they're selling something that just looks the same, like a carbon copy panel, for a couple of reasons. One, because I don't want to put you guys wrong and say, you know, this is a great panel and then find out that it's a scam, or, you know, they've got a dodgy manufacturing issue and they can't replace it and they go belly up. The exception here is with Rojo, because they are set up from a company that has been around for many years and is very well established in terms of dealing with customers, dealing with supply chain, dealing with warranty, returns, all of that. I mean, they're shipping saunas, you know, like a small red light therapy device is going to be easy from a logistics and supply chain and even financial point of view for these guys. So they are credible, they've been in the space, they know how it works, they've got all the back end set up. So you can trust them, or at least I trust them. Speaking of trust, they do have a 3-year warranty period on their panel, which is great. And they also have a 60-day return policy. So I asked them about this. They said, look, as long as the panel's returned as in a new condition, original packaging and whatnot, which is pretty standard, they'll refund the full amount. You as the customer just have to pay to ship it back. But again, if you're in Australia or New Zealand, that's going to be a lot less than shipping a panel back to, you know, the US or the UK, for instance. And for that reason, I think a lot of locals here in New Zealand and Australia are going to be attracted to the Rojo lights, because they know they can get on the phone and speak to a local in their own time zone. If there's any issues, they can send it back to a local address. All very, very good stuff. Finally, I should mention that their panels are certified to the New Zealand electrical safety standards. Now, they've sent their panels off for testing. They get the standards that you get from the company in China, which is pretty much what all panels have. But Rojo have gone above and beyond that and got the local certificates as well, which is all good stuff. Okay, enough about the company. Let's look at the device itself. Now, it's 60 LEDs, which is what we've seen quite a few times now in the tabletop space. We have seen larger ones, 100 LEDs, even up to 130 LEDs. So I guess it would be considered a little bit smaller. However, it's a good size. It's not too narrow. It appears, you know, rather squarish, I guess. Now, Rojo have told me that this panel, even though it is technically modular, you could connect it to other panels, it's actually not as wide as their larger panels. So for instance, their 900, the next one up is actually 10 LEDs across. This is 6. So it would look a bit funny. It's not necessarily designed or marketed as a clip-on, you know, build your dream red light therapy array panel. This is designed as a tabletop panel. It comes with the stand on the back. You can put it on your desk or your makeup workbench or makeup workbench. I'm pretty sure no female has ever called their makeup desk a makeup workbench, but there we go. You can put it wherever suits and adjust the stand as you can see, and it works all rather well. Now the price of the Rojo 300 is currently 695 Australian dollars. They've given me a discount code to share with you guys. That code is ALEX, A-L-E-X. Will save you 5%. I converted that to US dollars. Discount code ALEX brings that down to 440. Now this is a little bit higher compared to some of the other panels I've tested in the 60 LED size. However, remember, this is inclusive of shipping in New Zealand and Australia, and inclusive of all your taxes. Now, anyone who has bought a red light therapy panel who's based in New Zealand, and you know you spend $300 or $400 US on your panel, then you pay your $50 or $80 for your shipping, then you get hit with the import duties. You know that when you actually break it down, the cost, because it's all inclusive, isn't actually that bad for an Australian or a New Zealander. Now, if you're watching this in the States, you might be thinking, hey, look, I'm better off going to a local American company, for instance. And that's true. And Rojo know this as well, and I think that's why they're catering or targeting more towards that local market, which makes sense. They weren't able to give me shipping costs for international customers. Again, you have to reach out to them. So yeah, just see what the prices are. All right, cool. So now what we're gonna do is test, using my spectrometer here, we're gonna test the power radiance figures. We're gonna play around with sound testing and also check the EMF levels. Now, before I get that going, I'll just give you a quick rundown of the panel itself. It's 60 LEDs, and there are 4 peak wavelengths. It's a 25 split between 630 nanometers, 660 nanometers, 830 nanometers, and 850 nanometers. Now, if you've heard these numbers before, it all sounds familiar. That's because that is actually the same makeup as the Mito Pro panel. So they use the same ratio of wavelengths. Now, it even says in the manual here that the panel delivers an even 50% split of light across the visible red spectrum from 620 to 670, and the near infrared from 820 to 860. What's interesting here, they then go on to list the peak wavelengths that I just mentioned, but it is interesting how they have a range in there. And now this is something I've talked about before with red light therapy panels, and I've often said, like, hey, look, a panel could market themselves rather than having peak at say 660, they could say we have a panel that goes from 640 to 670, because every time I've done testing on these panels, you typically see quite a lot of energy across a range. Yes, there is a peak, of course. There's always going to be something, a figure that is the highest, but there's still a lot of energy, you know, either side of that. So Rojo aren't necessarily doing that, because they still do share those peak wavelengths in there. But it is interesting how they have listed the range, you know, 620 to 670, for instance. Now, they're not being misleading or anything like that, having that range. Again, every time I've tested a panel, we see a range. So it's going to be interesting to see if that is true here. I'm sure it will. We'll find out very, very soon. Before I do that, I should also mention that the panel has inbuilt pulsing. Now, the pulsing rate is only from 1 hertz through to 20 hertz, and that's just for the near infrared. Typically, we've seen pulsing in panels that have pulsed light. We see it from 1 hertz to 10,000, and it can be for both red and near infrared. The exception being the Juve Mini, which is 10 hertz pulsing only in near infrared. So it's quite interesting that they have limited it that way. Maybe they've looked into the science a bit and found that that's all they believe they need to use. Personally, I still haven't gone deep into the pulsing thing. I don't use it, and I still think it may be a bit of a gimmick, a bit of a fad. So yeah, I mean, it's neat that they've put it in there. Yeah, interesting sort of play. All right, testing is all done. So let's turn this off and let's run through the numbers. Now, I started with peak power in the middle here. What was surprising is the number for such a small device was very, very high. We had a figure of 82 milliwatts over centimeter squared. Now, that's up there. I mean, that's good for like a full body panel. So off to a great start there. To put that in perspective, most of the panels I've been testing so far this year, or last year depending on when this goes out, have been around the 50 to 60 mark. We have seen a 70 or so. The Biomax was up in the hundreds because Biomax is just super powerful, which seems to be the norm. The average over 9 spots was 56.9, which again is really, really good. In fact, that's probably the second or third best out of all the panels I've tested. So lots of power coming from this. When it came to the wavelengths, I was getting peaks around 838, which was a little bit higher for the 830 range, but not that it really matters too much. 630 and your 660. Let me show you this on screen. You can see the near infrared there and your red peaks in the middle. So as you can see with that, you're still getting light even in the middle, in between those two red peaks. It's probably about 50% of the light that you get compared to the peak, but there's still a lot of light there. So that is all good. Total wattage across the panel, I calculated that to be 24 watts. Now, that figure may sound a little bit lower, and just looking at some of my other numbers, it's probably about mid-pack, maybe even on the lowest side, but that is because most of the tabletop panels I've been testing are a lot larger than 60 LEDs. For a 60 LED panel, this is doing really well. Now, I also tested EMF, no issues there, which is great. Flickering, no flickering issues. Of course, that's with the pulsing off. That will change things if you turn it on. Now, sound, this was actually one of the first things I noticed when I turned this on the other day. It's very, very quiet. There's one fan at the back. It doesn't even look like it's a large fan. Like typically you see good 4-6 inch fans. This one's quite small, but it's very quiet. So I was looking forward to doing the sound test, and it came out to be 39.5 decibels, which is insane. Like anything under 50, I say is awesome, you know, and I've only seen maybe 2 or 3 panels under 50. This was under 40. It was bouncing around 38 to 39, and then I saw 40 flat once, and then it settled pretty much around that 39 mark. So it's very, very quiet, which is nice. I mean, I hope the industry as a whole moves that way. You know, the panels get quieter and quieter. It'll be interesting to see how the big brother performs, you know, the larger ones, if that's whisper quiet as well. So very, very cool there. All right, now that we've got all those figures, we can do some value calculations. So the figure I used here was the US converted US dollar at the discounted price after using discount code Alex. Now the dollar per LED was $7.33. Not high, but it's a little bit on the higher side, but it's not crazy high or anything like that. The dollar per watt figure was $18.30. Now, typically for a large panel, you want to be in the teens or even lower. For the tabletop panels, anything under, say, 15 or 20 has been really, really good. So 18 is obviously just out of that. Biomax, for instance, was $11. So it means just spend a little bit more for that a therapeutic red light. But remember, that is because these guys are catering more towards the Australia and New Zealand market, including all the local taxes and whatnot, and that is inclusive of shipping. Now, on the flip side, if you were buying this, if you saw this and you're like, this is perfect size and I want a whisper quiet one, but I live in New York, you're probably going to pay, or you are going to pay a premium to get it shipped there, which will mean that calculation, you know, the wattage dollar per watt figure is going to blow out even more. So I'm not saying they're a premium product as such, though it is a good product. There's no issues there. It's just the fact that, you know, we're over here in New Zealand and Australia, and we just have to pay more for everything. It just is what it is. There's upsides to living here, but there's also downsides, and a lot of those downsides are financial reasons. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the power cable's at the top. I really wish it was down the bottom or off to the side. Hey, it is what it is. There's a big power switch there. I do like the fact that there are those big power switches. And then on, not that side, this side, we have the control panel. Now the control panel is actually really, really cool. It's the first time I've seen a control panel like this. The screen is really nice. It's got color in the screen. It's not as nice as the Biomax panels with the touchscreen and all that. That's just another whole nother world. But it is really, really slick. It works really, really, really well. So come in and I'll show you. All right, so I've turned the unit on at the master switch. Now I'm gonna press the button on here. What you'll see here is at the top, we've got the timer, 23:44 at the moment. Underneath that, you've got 2 percentages. We've got red with 100% and N, or sorry, R with 100% and N with 100%. So that's your power intensity. So you can change the power levels on this. Underneath that, we've got P with a hertz, so that's your pulsing, and G, which is group, which I'll explain soon. Now, you can see the logo here, and the buttons are really nice. You've got the icons, but you've also got a label as well. And everything just looks really quite slick, to be honest. It hasn't been just done on the cheap like a lot of panels we see. Okay, so let's run through all the buttons. Now, I'll start at the bottom. We've got play, pause. That's pretty self-explanatory. I hit play or start, and it starts running. The counter starts going down. If I hit mode, okay, so once we've hit that mode button, you come into this menu screen here. Now, at the top, we've got the red and the near infrared bar. If I press increase or decrease, I can drop the intensity down from 100% all the way to 0. They go in 5% increments, and I can do the same for the near infrared. You press the near infrared button and change it to whatever suits. So we'll put them both at 75%. Then if I hit mode again, it takes me down to time. So I can change the timer from 3 minutes all the way down to 1 minute. If I hit mode again, it changes the pulse. So I can change the pulse from 0 hertz through to 20 hertz. Now, that audible beep is quite loud. It's louder than most panels. I know the new Biomax range that just got announced, they've got a function where you can disable that beep. And, you know, it's not a must-have feature, but it's a nice-to-have feature. These beeps in here are quite loud. Not that that's a problem. It's probably louder than the actual fan running, which is kind of ironic. Anyway, so you can change the pulsing, and then and then you've got the group down the bottom, which is for linking it to the remote, which I'll talk about soon, or connecting it to other panels, I believe. So once you've got all that set, you can just hit play, and away you go. Pretty simple, right? You want to stop it, hit play again. You can hit mode again, go into all the parameters and change it to suit. So that's the control panel. I like the color, I like the screen. If anything, it could be a little bit bigger. Some of those fonts down the bottom are quite small, but it is still, you know, it's pretty good. It works well. Okay, so now we have this included remote. Now, the buttons on this remote are exactly the same as what we saw on the device itself. However, there are 3 buttons down the bottom, 1, 2, 3, and that is just to link it with this panel. So currently it's set to group 1, so that means I just have to press group 1, or that beep was really loud, and then I can start and stop it. And I can also change, I can do all the menu changes in here as well, though to be honest, it's probably easier just doing it direct on there because you don't get that feedback on the screen. You're still looking at the screen. So if you're going to change the intensity and the timer, chances are you can see the screen, so you may as well just use the buttons on the screen. However, from a remote control point of view, this is kind of handy. You can start it and stop it, though it's not really necessarily, especially for a tabletop panel. All right, cool. So that is how you operate the panel, and yeah, overall, I think it works really nice. I'll just mention the stand. It does allow you to adjust the angle and the height. You can lower it down, lift it up. Gosh, that is so stiff. Pretty standard sort of stuff. Some of that plastic just didn't break, but it's a little bit loose there. It's not, the stand does the job, but it's not a super slick high-end stand, but it's better than nothing. So that's operation. We've looked at power, we've looked at the company, we've looked at the panel. How does this compare to other red light therapy panels? First up, I'll compare it to the Rojo range. Now, this is the dedicated tabletop range, tabletop panel. If you want to go to more of a body panel, then you're looking at the Rojo 900, which is wider, taller, designed more for, you know, hanging off the wall or on a mount. Then you can go to the larger, taller panels, but we're not going to cover that in this video. Personally, I mean, if you're looking for a small tabletop panel or something you can travel with, then this is really the only option within the Rojo range. Now, if you're going out to other companies, firstly, it's important to consider where you're located, all right? Now, if you're in Australia or New Zealand, there are lots of options. Most companies ship to Australia and New Zealand. I just had the Juve Mini shipped here, the Mini 3.0. You know, got it shipped to my door. It took about a week. I paid nearly $1,500 for that. It was $1,000 for the panel, $100 for shipping, and then a couple $100 import duty. It was quite expensive. So keep that in mind when you are shopping around. It's not just going to come down to performance and even features. If you are someone who would rather work with a local company and be able to speak to someone in your time zone and dial a local number, then yeah, Rojo, and you're based in New Zealand or Australia, Rojo is going to be a standout straight away because it has all that. It's even going to ship from Australia, which is pretty neat. But if you're looking at it from a specs point, power, value proposition, then yeah, you do have to shop around. Now, to be honest, if you are based in the States or Canada or the UK, at this stage, because they are coming into the UK, you're probably better off looking at other options because you're going to spend a lot of money to get this shipped to your door. Unless, of course, there's a real standout feature here and you love the design or the control panel. But if we compare it to, say, the larger panels, your Red Rush with 130 LEDs or your Biomax with 100 odd LEDs, then they're typically putting out a lot more watts, 40, 50 watts in the panel. So you're getting a lot more red light. Obviously, you get a lot more treatment area as well. So if you want to use a panel for not just your face, but also like treating your legs or your sore back or something, you may want to go down the route of a slightly larger tabletop panel. Now, if you're someone who wants really small, but good value, something like the Huga Health, they were putting out 25 watts, a little bit more than this, but they had a $1 per wattage figure of $9.50, which is half of this. And that's an American-based company. So there's a lot to look at. If you want something with pulsing, you've got the infrared devices, you've got the Juve. I believe Red Rush had pulsing as well, and they do pulsing from 0 through to 10,000, so you got more range there. If you want something with multi-wave technology, this does the job with the 4 wavelengths, but a lot of those other ones also did as well. So it's really hard at the moment because I've tested so many red light tabletop panels to say, this is better or this is worse or whatever. I am going to be doing a full comparison video on tabletop panels, so be sure to subscribe for that. The real standout though for Rojo and the Rojo 300 is the Australian New Zealand focus. Now, that's not the only selling point though. That control panel is very nice. The size is quite unique and works really well. It is packaged up in a nice design. You've got all the gold standard sort of checklist items. You've got a 3-year warranty, a 60-day trial period. You've got multi-wave technology. You've got really, really good power output. So it's not like it's just another device. It's another good device that is out there with good power, good wavelengths, good control panel, good support, all of that. Anyway, let's wrap this up. So overall, it is a nice design and it works really well. The power's great wavelength range. No issues with EMF. Super quiet, which is awesome. I love seeing that we're now under 40 decibels for a good powered red light therapy panel. So overall, yeah, really good. Ticks a lot of the boxes. It's just not going to be for everyone simply because of the shipping and the location point of view. But hey, I live in New Zealand, and I know now if someone wants to buy from a local company, I know where I'll send them. I'll just say, hey, check out Rojo. So look, if you want to get one of these, be sure to use discount code Alex. I'll put a link to the website below so you can go off and learn more about this company and this product. Hopefully I'll be reviewing some of the larger panels. So stay tuned for that. Be sure to hit subscribe. And again, be sure to subscribe because I will be doing a couple of comparison videos with the tabletop panels I've been tested this year. There have been a lot of them. This is actually the last one I was going to play with before I start filming that. So depending on when you're watching this, they'll be out soon. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm going to sign off and I will see you later. Bye.